What's going on, everyone? So, Jimmy Butler trade has been linked to several teams, but one team that really kind of gained traction recently was the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis Grizzlies ended up missing out on Dorian Finney-Smith. He ended up going to the Lakers. They've been trying to kind of find that supplement, that 3-and-D wing, but Jimmy Butler became available, and it was like, God, that makes a ton of sense. And not gonna lie, Jimmy Butler on the Memphis Grizzlies would be tough, right? Like, I mean, they, at that point, I think that they are a contender. Would they actually be able to win one? I don't know. I think a lot of that would come down to health, particularly with Jimmy Butler as well as Ja Morant. But if those guys can be healthy, sky's the limit for that team. And I think he just fits in seamlessly, gives them that added toughness, gives them that grit and grind. I mean, you could do something like Ja. You'd probably have to trade Baines. So, can you work something out? Maybe keep like a Smart or like however you focus it. But essentially, you have a Ja Morant, Jimmy Butler, Triple J, and then a Zach Edey would give you size, versatility, right? You'd be really good, and then kind of just figure out whatever's left after the trade, who your 2 spot is. But apparently, reports came out that Jimmy Butler has told several teams that, hey, don't trade for me, I'm not interested, right? Because he does still have a lot of power. He can opt out next season and essentially pick where he wants to go or force a team's hand and say, hey, you need to sign and trade me. And at that point, what it would take for Memphis to go and trade for a Jimmy Butler, you're probably not going to get back even in a sign and trade. And is he somebody that's really worth the risk of like, oh, let's finish the rest of the season with this, especially if you have to give up like a Bane or something like that, right? Like that's probably not the best solution for a team like the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Jimmy Butler supposedly has no interest in going to Memphis, which causes Memphis to really have to pivot now. But it kind of highlights 2 things. One, Memphis's lack and need of a 3-and-D wing, right? They usually have to go small in that regard. Secondly, the Miami Heat, I don't think they're going to be able to trade Jimmy Butler, not at least this season, right? Like teams aren't lining up. Reports have came out that the market for Jimmy Butler is small. Teams have not made any serious offers, as it's put, right? Like anything close to what Miami wants in a return for Jimmy Butler. But I just don't see you getting that, right? Again, he's older. If he was 30, teams would probably be lining up to go get Jimmy Butler. I mean, the guy has done more with less than probably any star in the league. And he immediately would make pretty much every team in the league a contender, right? So he's one of those few guys that really can have that impact. But again, injury history, his contract, his age, and then on top of that, how serious or lack thereof that he takes the regular season. That's been a big problem, right? Like, Jimmy Butler in the regular season is not Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. And Miami's a play-in team every year. And it's just like, it's like, hey, it would be nice if maybe you had home court in the first round or something, so you don't have to have this uphill battle every year. Yeah, you're in the conference finals or the NBA finals every other year, but still, it's like you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball for no real reason. So I don't know. Like, I don't know what the solution is for Miami here. Because and look, I've said this from day one that I wouldn't be shocked if Jimmy Butler ends up staying with Miami. And reports even came out about that Miami is expecting him to continue to play as they try to find a trade through this after this 7-game suspension. But again, like, yeah, he'll come back. Yeah, sure, he'll play. But it's just like, I mean, look, Miami's a sinking ship right now. Everyone's struggling. Guys aren't playing because it's a bunch of noise. It's a bunch of mess, right? Like, you have Bam and Tyler Hero and all these guys that Jimmy's their guy. Jimmy's like, that's their boy, right? So they're not going to speak ill of him. They're not going to do it. And they're getting asked all these questions. It's just this big distraction, but they don't want to like slight the organization. They're in a rock and a hard place because there's no real way to answer it, right? Because either A, you're gonna criticize or upset Jimmy, or you're gonna criticize and upset the organization. Either way, it's a bad look for you, right? So if and Pat Riley's not a guy that just takes things like, oh, I get it, no, he's gonna take that pretty personal. So the problem is that like, where does Miami go from here, right? They want to remain competitive. I don't know how you're going to get a competitive package, but they don't want Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's probably the best option that you can get to remain competitive, right? I think he fully gets back to being a 25-5-5 guy, right? But again, then you're stuck if it doesn't work. His injury history at that point, now you have a redundancy with him and Tyler Hero. So do you at that point, you might as well go all in. So you trading Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero's been so good for Miami this year, but it's just like if you do get a Bradley Beal, and this is the point, right? Like there's no real good answer, right? Because no matter how they do, the only option that I see maybe is like finding a team that is willing to give you like rebuild pieces, right? But the Warriors supposedly are out on Jimmy Butler. Supposedly they want nothing to do with Jimmy Butler, that they're looking for a center, that they want to pick something up in the center market. Nikola Vucevic has been heavily linked to them. They want somebody that they can pair alongside a Draymond Green. So if that's the case and that's the truth, then they're out on Jimmy. Well, there goes your chance to get, a Kuminga and guys like that could be a nice foundation piece. So can you find another team like that? But then again, if Jimmy isn't willing to go to any of those teams, right? Because originally the reports were like, hey, Jimmy wants to play anywhere but Miami. What did I say? It says that now, but just wait till teams start calling that he doesn't want to go to. What happened? Teams started calling that he didn't want to go to, and now all of a sudden it's like, I don't want to go to these teams. Right? So it's just like, okay, so you do have a list of teams that you want to go to, right? Like, which is the point. Like, everyone knew that he had a list of teams he wanted to go to. That all this was just him slighting the Miami Heat, right? And it's just, the longer you keep him, the worse this is going to continue to get, right? Even if he comes back and buys in, the media, the players, it's just going to be noise after noise after noise. Jimmy Butler's going to be getting asked all kinds of questions, and the players are going to be asked questions, and it's going to be a mess. You have to get off of Jimmy Butler. You have to. If you're Miami, like if you want to salvage this season by any means, you have to get off of Jimmy Butler. The problem is they're probably not going to be able to do that for any type of return that they want, which means that you're probably not going to be able to trade him till the offseason. And even then, he might just opt out and leave. Right? Like, Jimmy's a guy that strikes me as, like, you don't care. Right? Like, trade me, you can't trade me? All right, I'm out of here. And opt out, and then they just lose him for nothing. Right? Like, and it's like you could have gotten something. Right? But to me, it's like Miami needs to pick a lane. Right? That or they need to suck it up and just be like, Jimmy, you're a guy. Like, look. Disagreements, arguments, whatever, and kind of just like try to salvage the relationship by any means, because outside of that, unless Jimmy either buys in and then gets the team to buy in, or you get rid of him, there is no turnaround, in my opinion. I don't see this team just magically figuring it out, and it's like, oh, okay, well now we, now we got it, right? Like, I just don't see that being the case, and so it's just, how many teams really want Jimmy Butler? How many teams are really interested in Jimmy Butler? Right? Like, supposedly the Nuggets and the Heat discussed a possibility, but that kind of fizzled out. Right? That kind of ended up leading and going nowhere. Right? Like, Bulls and Nuggets have talked about it, and that has apparently gone nowhere. Right? So it's just like, who's left? Like, how many teams actually make sense for Jimmy Butler too? Right? Like, Memphis made a ton of sense, right? Like, I don't want to see a team like the Spurs or the Thunder or anybody like that to do that. Although I think the Thunder probably are going to get Cam Thompson or Cameron Johnson, not Cam Thomas. Kind of mix the two there. But I think that they're going to end up getting Cam Johnson. I think the only thing that is the reason they haven't yet is because they're waiting on Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins. They become available January 15th. So once they become available, I think that you'll see that deal get done. So it might not be necessarily on the 15th, but around the 15th, I think you're going to see that end up playing out, and that going to end up getting worked out. But I don't know. It's wild. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get more wild. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? First off, where do you think Jimmy Butler ends up landing? If he even lands anywhere, do you think he ends up staying with the Miami Heat? If so, what kind of return do you think Miami should try to be looking for? Do you think they should just go rebuild mode? Do you think they should try to stay competitive? Like, again, what team is lining up to maybe take on Jimmy Butler, right? Like, I thought Memphis made a ton of sense for all parties involved, and it doesn't look like that's the case anymore. So We'll see. Time will tell. But again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I love to hear it either way. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot as we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.